Morning, everyone. How are you, Luke and Jerry?
All good here. Luke is doing better than all of us.
Yes.
Oh, I love that's a great intro. Thanks for that. Yes, I am away and it is sunny. Thank you. Welcome. Morning, everybody.
And you've still joined our podcast, which is real commitment, I feel.
Well, to the cause, as we all are. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Team player. And there's definitely some exciting things going on that we need Luke's input on, as always. So really glad you've taken the time out.
Thanks.
Um, yeah, so this one's been quite an exciting one, actually, because ChatGPT have released their new model 4.0, and it's going to be available to free users as well. So where we did the first month's introduction webinar on how to use ChatGPT, and we sort of went through all of the benefits of ChatGPT 4 that Plus users have or teams have, is now or soon will be available to free users as well. So it's their most powerful model, and they're trying to sort of increase the number of languages that you can use it for. So I got sent a really strange email the other day that was in a foreign language and didn't understand it. So I could get sort of snippets and go like, what does this mean? And it could translate it for me, which was really helpful. That one, it turned out that it was kind of like, I think it was a spam one. It was a bit jargon. So it said like, but it gave me some advice, go, this doesn't really make sense, but this is what it would mean if you read it. So
Unsubscribe.
yeah, it was one of those. I was like, I'll just delete that now. But it was really
Yeah.
helpful. Didn't have to like go on Google Translate or something.
I'm happy to submit the data subject access request for you on how they got your consent for that. That's fine. We'll talk about that separately.
Yeah, yeah. It was one of those weird ones. I was like, I'll check just in case it's something important. But yeah, it was a good practice for AI for me. So yeah, that's a really exciting sort of new tool that is going to be available to everyone. So if you haven't started using it yet, or you haven't got the paid version yet, it's a nice way to get into it without having to commit the funds, which I thought was really, really useful.
What just on that, what is the point then of having the paid one if the one that was paid is now free? I'm assuming then, I may be wrong, but I'm assuming that the paid one now is like bigger and better then, if that's the case.
So in terms of capabilities, they are technical capabilities, they're very similar. On paper, there's not much difference in what they can produce. From a usage point of view, though, both Plus and Teams users, which we use, have a higher message cap. So if you were to use the free version, you'll get blocked after a little bit and go, you can't do that anymore. You need to wait an hour, 24 hours to your message cap resets. And what I'm sure Luke will want to talk about as well is the Teams one is still the one we're going to suggest because it has the better security settings. The free version is not going to change off the back of this new model. It's just the actual technical capabilities.
Hi, Lana.
Yeah, well, look, we've got to start thinking about. I was at the Records Management Conference last week, giving a talk, not about AI, but the kind of related. The day after was the Information Management Tech Summit that was sponsored by Microsoft, who are outputting Copilot, who are a massive investor in OpenAI, so ChatGPT and this model. And a lot of that was about making sure that your records management, your data governance is all up to speed to make sure that you don't get, false positives, hallucinations, all of the bits that, you keep hearing people talk about from anything that you kind of are trying to retrieve from that model or anything you're asking it. So I think there's an element of that, and equally just protecting that data, protecting your IP is crucial, especially when you're talking about the gen stuff, because you're creating new content off the back of, well, whose content, whose IP. So there's still those questions being asked that I think we have got a responsibility to make sure that people who are part of our community understand, there is a current ongoing path of conversation about, sources of output from generative AI models. So, which is why we are kind of, being cautious about going down the paid route so that you can contain that whole data set that it's learning from.
I think that's a really interesting point.
I'm just saying hi to people that are listening. Hi, Lana. Hi, Rachel.
Did either of you see the lawsuit that's been launched by Scarlett Johansson for ChatGPT, mimic her voice? So they approached her.
Yes.
We'd like you to record it, and you can be the voice, because they thought it would be relatable, I think, and sort of maybe sort of calming or whatever. But she said no for whatever reason, and then they've kind of done it anyway.
Yeah, they've
And
created
they've,
one that sounds
funnily enough, they've
exactly
pulled
like
that
It's
voice.
a likeness. It's
Oh,
not
they
her
pulled
voice.
it.
And this is where it all gets complicated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
Because-
IP?
Yeah, and how do you protect your own voice? It's a really weird one, like
It's a good one.
because people can sound similar, and it so that one I found, I understood her point of view, but I found it really interesting about how you could even take that to court necessarily. Like, had they not asked her in the first place, could they have just done it?
Yeah.
And it not be an issue? I honestly don't know, because there's apps like Speechify that people may have seen, and they've got hundreds of celebrity voices on there, and I don't know if they've been approached or that they've just mimicked them.
I think, like, just going back to what we for the listeners, and going back to what we started talking about with just if you didn't hear, guys, but ChatGPT now has a free version, which was the paid version. So ChatGPT 4 is now free, am I right? So just
So
bring it
4.0 is one they've just released.
4.0 is what they've just released. So if you're using ChatGPT now, you'll be using probably ChatGPT 4.0, which is the free one. And what is important for anybody, like any business owners that are using this new free version of ChatGPT? What are the important things that they need to bear in mind, like from a user perspective and also a data protection perspective?
I'll let you start, Sam. I'll go the doom and gloom bit at the end.
Yeah, we were sort of just covering off like how it's the technical capabilities in the free version are now almost identical to that of the paid version. You will have a message cap and a usage cap on all of the versions, but it's much higher on Plus and even higher on Teams. And what Luke will recap now is the fact that we would still suggest using the Plus or ideally the Teams version, because that has the better data security. Teams obviously is completely locked down, so you can't even turn the training model on whereby your data isn't sent back to the OpenAI for them to train future models.
And just quickly before Luke comes in with the doom and gloom on that, is Teams, because I just need to understand this then. So the Teams versions, that's what we're now using in Smooth.
Yes.
But is that cheaper or more expensive than using the paid version on GPT? Just
It is
without...
more expensive. So it is 2-seat minimum,
Right,
and it is a higher cost than Plus per month
per user.
per user. So it is more expensive, but you do get the higher message cap, and you do get the enhanced security and the admin features as well.
Yeah, like we can share kind of internally our GPTs and stuff like that, which is better.
Yes. So collaboratively, I think it's really good. And I think if you invest the time into it in a business with multiple employees and multiple users, it's an absolute no-brainer.
Right, okay. And over to you, Luke, for doom and gloom.
Well, hopefully it's not doom and gloom. It's more about best business practice, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, you are creating data all the time, and you've got data sets. And the reason we've started to talk about this is you've got lots of data that we want to provide all this automation and insight into, but getting that structured right is the key thing. And if you do that properly and you use the versions that Sam's talking about, then you get to contain what is the algorithm is training itself on, rather than basically OpenAI's scrape of the internet, which again is back to lawsuits. There are multiple lawsuits going on against them about the use of that data for the kind of training, which is what the free version we're talking about is trained on. So that already creates potential issues. So looking at the paid versions gives you that greater degree of security and control over the data from which that model is operating. And of course, just read through, I know they're boring, but read through their privacy notices, OpenAI's, just check what it is doing with they should have updated their privacy notice based on the new version of the model, because there will be additional features, additional data that will be being fed into it. They've got to be transparent about what they're doing with that data and how that's getting collected. Read through it. And of course, here is your forum. If you've got any questions about it, right, send them through to us. I'll happily kind of explain things if they've tried to put it in a non-transparent language in what is supposed to be a transparent notice.
It was probably, that's really useful. I think it would probably be really useful to touch on that on your next data protection webinar.
Yeah.
When the live one that you do for the
Yeah.
Smooth AI members,
Definitely.
just because that's obviously come out now, so it's the chance for you to update everybody on what you think based on
Yeah.
their privacy notices. And this month's webinar, Sam, was on meeting recorders,
Meeting note takers, yeah.
meeting note takers, like we use Read AI in Smooth, and you went through a few of the options and kind of discussed pros and cons. And what was the kind of main takeaways from that webinar?
So the main takeaways from that is it's about using AI to sort of do things that you're already doing and just free up time and systemize things. So the sort of highlight for me was that was the one I use every single day. And I've been really keen actually on trying to use that internally now as well. So started off doing it for external discovery calls so I could engage with new clients and be more personable. So using AI to get more human interaction is exactly what I want to be using it for. You see so many case studies or people saying it's taking away from human interaction. I've seen loads of people post on LinkedIn about how like you shouldn't be outsourcing it because the whole point of LinkedIn is to be personable and build your brand and build connections. And then you see the comments and it's just a series of the same comment with different emojis that have clearly outsourced it to AI, which always amuses me.
Yeah.
So the fact that we can use it and demonstrate how to use it to improve human interaction was brilliant. And then this month we're starting to use it internally for like in-person meetings. So one of the ones I demoed was Fireflies, where you can have a mobile app and you can hit record, and then it will record your meeting and then transcribe it afterwards and give you the action points for things like KPI meetings, sort of discussions about accounts, where the business is going. And again, you don't then have 5 different people taking 5 different sets of notes. So we can share them all with the team afterwards. And everyone's a bit more engaged because we've all been there where someone's been designated note taker and they're sitting in the corner and they can't participate.
Yeah.
So there's another way that we can use it to increase the human interaction. And also it was a really good way to start getting the team sort of more involved.
Yeah.
Because there's been a real sort of divide that I've seen both internally and externally about the adoption of AI. People are still nervous about it. So if we can introduce it with standardized things that everyone's used to and it's just in the background, it's a really nice win for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we've been there like with, you know, when we would have management meetings, wouldn't we? Like last year, like there was always someone taking notes and then typing up minutes of our meeting like afterwards. It sounds really like draconian to say it now because you're like, why on earth would someone waste their time doing that? But that's exactly how because we're all chatting away and we can't, you know, someone might be typing, for example, not even writing, but typing what you're saying. And, oh, that's a really valid point. Type that, write that down. Oh, okay, I need to come back to you next week. Write that down. And you're right, they can't engage. They can't enjoy the meeting or contribute because they're so focused on, I mustn't miss anything that's being said. So it's not just about the Zoom calls, the Teams calls, the client calls. It's about how we're using it internally to make the team feel more included. You know, you're not just a note taker, like you're part of this meeting and we want you to get involved and share your thoughts. So I think that's a really important thing. And what was the kind of consensus on the note takers from, because we try and be really neutral with Smooth AI. You know, the whole point of what we've created with this membership is that we are not endorsed, we are not sponsored. You never know when you're watching videos or YouTube videos training things, is the person saying, oh, use, I don't know, Otter because it's amazing and it does this, it does that, and the other ones don't do these things and it's so great. We're trying so hard to be neutral in Smooth AI and give a really balanced view and actually a factual view. So just because we use Read AI doesn't mean we're going to say that's the best one. We're just using it because we found it to be better for various reasons. So we're trying to be, you know, we don't benefit from saying that to anyone. We don't benefit by saying like Read AI is great or anything like that. So, you know, it's, for us, it's so important to be transparent and fair and factual. So what did Luke, where did we get to with the pros and the cons of some of these main note takers.
Well, so I just want to talk about two things, because what you've just highlighted in that conversation is the basis that organizations really need to start thinking about the introduction of AI. So you've thought about the use cases for which AI will be useful, not just because we want to put AI in, but because we need something to make sure we can engage all the members of the team and not just have someone sat in a corner taking notes, right? That is a brilliant use case that you've thought out and thought about before you've then gone out and started to look at, right, well, which is the right tool, which is back to this part, which is Sam and I had some interesting WhatsApp exchanges about the particular tools. And good news is the ones that you're using were definitely the preferential ones of the list that Sam supplied to me. And I think you've already mentioned one, and again, I'm not going to disparage any, but there was one that you've already mentioned as part of this conversation, which, let's just say, we were not so keen on, based on, again, me going through their data privacy notice, looking at how that data was collected, the vagueness about
you can
how
say
that
what it is.
I think
again, it's factual. There's nothing, no other.
No. I mean, so when we looked through the Otter was the one that I was not particularly enamored with, purely because there was a bit of vagueness around the transparency piece. Data was being used almost as and when they wanted for training. Transfers internationally was a bit like, yeah, we might do that, we might not. We've worked on international data transfers, so we know it's not a straightforward, situation.
Really
and so kind of just not being clear about what's happening with the data you put in it is not, for me, a good starting point. And simple things like going onto their websites. I know this is boring again, but like going onto the website and no cookie control automatically tells me that's their stance on privacy, right? Or a very poor implementation of one. And you think, right, if you're not taking that bit seriously, and I'm going to start letting you listen to my internal meetings, right, and take notes and transcribe all that data, I'm suddenly not very comfortable. So, and that's the thing. It's not just the personal data element, of course. You're introducing it to your business. It's your business IP is potentially being discussed as part of these conversations. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that is protected, and we've talked about IP a lot. So we had some great WhatsApp messages between Sam and I about that one for sure.
Absolutely. Luke, can you give a bit of context? Like, I think it's a really easy way for people to start, like, understanding if they need to, like, go further. Can you just explain what someone should be seeing when on a good cookie policy when they first go on a website? Because you mentioned that's obviously not there, like, but it should be in your face as soon as you go in, right?
But it should be. You should have. I know they talk about these kind of cookie walls and cookie banners, but there should be some form of control that pops up when you go onto someone's website, and you should have, at minimum, for me, two options, but ideally three, right?
I knew you were going to say ideally three.
But a reject all, right? So you should, and again, if you don't, some people put in accept all and then a tiny little link that says more options. That for me is not good enough. That means you're already trying to make it complicated for someone to not provide you freely given consent.
So frustrating to do that because you just want to get into the website and just
right? But your only option really. Yeah, that's it. It's the dark patterns that are used, right? So it's the massive green accept all, and then this tiny little link that says, more options, and then you click on more options, and then you get this list, right, of switches that you like on and off.
It's infuriating.
Exactly, and everyone's going to go, just accept, right? Which, that means you've not really freely given your consent, right? Because you've been forced into that situation through frustration, coercion to do that. So you should have an accept all and a reject all. And then, of course, you could, the third one potentially is just like an accept essential cookies, right? Which is effectively the same as doing the reject all, theoretically. It should be, but it just depends on how people group the different types of cookies. Because, of course, you've got the stuff that needs strictly necessary, i.e. the stuff that makes the website run. So those you're allowed to have all switched on at all times, permanently switched on. But then you get into analytics and marketing live chats. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole heap of other tracking tech, like code and cookies that go onto websites that need to be grouped, and you should be given the opportunity to determine whether you want that or you don't want that.
So what is your, because you broke up a tiny bit when you said the first bit, but
Sorry.
what's ideal? So you click on a website and the thing pops up, you think
It should have a reject all and an accept all ID.
Then
Those,
what's the third one?
the
Accept.
third one then would be like an accept, essential only or essential only. So you sometimes see a 3-tier or just a 2-tier. The 2-tier is the minimum. But if you go into a website and it's just got a big accept all button and then a lovely little more options, right?
So for our websites, I'm just thinking anybody listening to this podcast, right? Sort out your cookie consent. So have an accept all, have a reject all, and then ideally have a third one, which is like maybe you click on it and then you get to decide and you can go through and toggle.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's an ideal world. Accept all, reject all. If you want to accept some or reject some, like you can modify it.
Yes.
But at minimum, accept all, reject all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ideally, the third one. Okay, that's really useful.
Yeah.
That's so useful.
Just one more very quick thing on that. If you click onto that more options and it's got an option that says legitimate interest, that is not a legal basis for processing your tracking data. So they're already going to try and collect that illegally. So I would definitely not use that website. Just saying.
Okay, that's really useful.
Long story. We can go into that. I go into that in the website in my
Again, I think that's another really good thing to touch on, like on a next live data protection webinar, that kind of thing, because this is so useful for business owners. Like this is the sort of thing that you hear about but you don't really understand, and this is where Luke comes in, guys, everyone that's listening, because this is what you do all day, every day. You know it inside out. So really good.
Thanks.
Amazing.
So next month, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, I mean,
not that I haven't been excited about all of them, obviously, but the next one is more down the street.
Yes. So what we are going to be looking at in next month's webinar is using AI to both create and then post on social media. Because I know marketing was mentioned right at the very start by a few members on Facebook. And it's something we're working on. And we want to look at a few different options, both sort of very basic posting, very generic, and then we want to look at some more in-depth options, which might start with sort of some raw footage and then using that to then create a whole range of social media posts. And basically we want to again get you to an efficient stage where you're not having to put so much time and effort into recreating the wheel. Like you've got one excellent piece of content and then you can chop that up and use it in loads of different ways. So Luke and I are going to have to do a little bit of work on like what apps we're gonna use and suggest, and then we'll be putting those to everyone about how we're going to do that, and we're going to do that ourselves, aren't we, Jeri? So we're going to do that with a few of the different companies, because they all need various different approaches. So then we can give a cross section of what is available to everyone.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that, because there's so much that people waste their time on when it comes to this, or even feel that overwhelmed and don't do any of it, because it's like you hear it all the time, like, oh, if you've got a video, maybe you've been on a podcast, or maybe you did a speech somewhere and they recorded it, like, and you can use that, and you sort of go, okay, and then you think like, what? Like what do you mean? Like, how do I don't know where to start, I'm too busy and I can't think, and people just don't do anything. And even me, like, people think I'm on social media on time. I am, but if I'm typing a post out, fine. But again, that takes me time and effort. If I had almost even a starting point where I could literally just add some emojis and put a tiny bit of flair on it, that's just saved me 10 minutes a day. Like, it's an hour a week. Like, that's a lot of time. So I think that's going to be so useful for people, just to not feel that overwhelm, at least have something they can start looking at using, even if they want to post one time a week to start with, but have a piece of content that they can repurpose into loads of different, pieces would be so useful.
Absolutely, and I think it's those ones that are, again, the exciting ones, the ones that are going to save you time. And then if you're getting some posts that are in, like, or at least a starting point for a post for then you to send out, you can then spend more time, like we said at the start of the webinar, building the personal relationships, spend that time commenting, liking, connecting with other people and having conversations, which is what social media is about.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that point, for anyone listening, if you've got any questions or anything that you think would be really useful or something you're struggling with AI, please pop them in the chat box, because we're more than happy to answer those, or, you know, it will give us food for thought for the next webinars and things. So it's really, really useful. If you guys have any feedback or questions, please put them in the chat box. Yeah, so I'm really excited for that webinar next month. And we'll have Luke, I think yours is
In July.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say, I was going to say June, and I was like, no, it's July. So the next quarterly live webinar from Luke, which will be really useful, all about data protection when using AI. And obviously it's changing all the time. We've already talked about how now all of a sudden ChatGPT has this new free version. So like that's changed so quickly since the last time we spoke about it. So it's so useful for those quarterly updates to have, you know, actually now things have changed now. So now you need to be looking at this. Leanne has just asked a question. How do you find out which note taker is best for your business meetings? Is there a checklist of things to check? Really want to find something for Zoom. Something for like a note taker for Zoom. So we were talking about that, Leanne. I think actually you might have missed the bit where we talked about that in quite a lot of detail. So definitely go back and re-listen. But we use Read AI, which I think out of the ones that Sam reviewed in last month's webinar, again, I don't know if you've seen the webinar, Leanne, that got posted to the members area. This month it was all about note takers. So literally went through this in so much detail, but Otter, not massively thrilled with in terms of its data protection, data privacy. Read AI, I think, that came out okay, I'm hoping, because that's the one we use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the order, wasn't it, Sam? It was Read, because we looked at three.
So yeah, it was Firefly was preferred because it's encrypted.
Yeah.
Read AI was, you were happy with the data protection, the privacy policies, it all looked pretty good. And then Otter weren't very transparent, so it's difficult to understand where things were going. So we would not be using that one.
But just to answer your question, in that you're welcome, Leanne. But in terms of what to check for, Luke mentioned, you know, as boring as it is, checking the privacy policy. And if you've got any questions or you don't understand, you know, that's what we're here for. So if you were looking into a specific thing and you said, actually, a privacy policy doesn't tell me this, or I'm not sure, you know, please do pop it in the Facebook group, or, you know, let us know, send us an email, and we can look into it for you. You know, Luke's data protection guru, so this is all up his street. He loves it. So yeah, definitely watch this month's webinar, re-listen to this podcast. We talked quite a bit about it, and check out Firefly and Read AI. Those are the good ones. Obviously there's hundreds of thousands, like we didn't look at all of them. Those are just the three that we looked at, so there may be some others that are fantastic as well, but just to be fully transparent. Great question. So to wrap up, we've said ChatGPT now has 4.0, which is, or 4.0, 4.0?
Yeah, 4.0. Yeah.
4.0, which is was the paid version, is now the free version. However, you need to make sure you're being really, really careful with data privacy, and it's still ideally you will use the paid version, because it's, and we use the Teams version, which is very locked down. It's a little bit more expensive, but it comes with lots more benefits. We talked about cookie policy on websites, what you should be having on your websites, which is really important, and that was so useful. So I'm going away and checking all of my websites based on that. We talked about next month we're going to talk about how to use AI for social media and marketing, how to get long form content and make short form content for it, and automate some of that using AI. And yeah, answer some questions and had a good AI chat.
Yeah, anyone that's watching afterwards as well, definitely pop any messages in the Facebook group, and we will sort of collaborate all together, because I'm really interested to hear what you've been using it for based on the webinar so far, any questions you've got, and again, like Jeri mentioned, anything that you are really interested in that we haven't already covered or suggested we're going to cover, let us know so we can look into it for you.
Yeah, and one other thing we mentioned about is how we're using note takers internally as well as externally, which is actually being way more collaborative and inclusive of our team members, and it's having a much wider impact. And I think that was a really key thing that we mentioned here, how we are trying to make it benefit our team, not just in terms of productivity and efficiency, but actually how we're making our team feel more valued, more included through using AI. So improving, as Sam said, improving our human interaction, our human element. But using AI for that. So it's maybe going against what people are talking about. And I really think AI, that's exactly how it should be used. You should be making it do all the boring, monotonous, repetitive tasks so that you can improve your human interaction. And that's what we talk about a lot. Sardar said, kindly share the link where I can re-listen to the first webinar. So everything is in the members area in your Smooth AI membership. So if you can pop an email over to sam@smoothai.co.uk, you can make sure you've got access to the members area. You should have it when you signed up. You would have been given access, but we'll just make sure that you can find.
Yeah, that's no problem. So I can send you sort of a detailed instruction on how to get there, Sardar. That's no problem at all.
Good. Well, Luke, have a wonderful rest of your time in Mykonos.
Thank you very much.
I
Will do.
mean that.
I can tell.
I do.
Tell sincerity in your voice there, Jeri. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, I do. And thank you for joining us, even though you're on holiday. And
It's
thanks
a
everyone
pleasure.
for listening. Thanks, Sam, for all of the updates on the AI side. And yeah, looking forward to next month and more stuff to come.
Yeah. I'll see you soon, guys. Thank you.
All right.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.